few minutes. All right.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Can we hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes. Yes,
before
we can hear you.
we before I start, I want to make sure every group at least is represented here. So if you are here, you're representing your group, even if you're not the speaker, but you're a group member for a group, you can just use the chat to type your group name, Ruby, Crystal, Gold, Diamond. Just use the chat to try type your group name, so I can know that groups here are represented. Okay, Joel, Cora, Bronze, Emerald, Gold, Peridot, Emerald, Gold. I've not seen Ruby, Diamond, Diamond. Okay, Ruby, Emerald.
Can't hear you. Is it from me?
Gersh is not speaking now. We can no longer hear. Okay, so let's give her a few minutes. Yeah, hi, Didi. Are you here? Right, so she has left.
Hello.
So, right, so
Okay, I'm back now. Hello.
hi.
Can we hear me, please?
Yes, I,
Yes. I'm so sorry. MTN is trying to be very, very, very funny also this night. So I'm going to just be really swift so I can pause and try to rectify that. Okay, so I think from the last time before I was cut off, every group seems to be represented here. So like the order of the program, before we begin the events properly, the whole idea of today's event is not mainly to have this kind of a toxic or a funny competition within groups. The first thing first is to learn how to work together as a group, learn how to work together as a team in your own group, because at the end of the day, our technical writing a job as a technical writer. Okay, can we hear me better now? I think Edith said it's too low.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
better.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at the end of the day, our job as technical writers, we're going to be working with a lot of teammates, not just your own technical writers per se. Now you're going to be working with developers, QAs, customer support, stakeholders, and a lot of things. So we wanted to use this. The whole idea too from this game is to learn how to collaborate and work with diverse people as a team in technical writing, which is one of the reasons why this whole idea came about. So at group does not emerge as the winner, it doesn't mean like your effort so far has been fruitless. You have learned something, you have learned collaboration, you have learned. Then moving on, the group today is we are going to you were shared that you should teach us on the topics based on everything you have learned so far in the boot camp. Is over a month now. All of the had, you are picking a topic and you are teaching us under 10 minutes. You're teaching us under 10 minutes on that topic. So I'm going to be announcing now our panel of judges today. I will be also officiating the event today. I'll be officiating the event, and then the panel of judges also is me, Sir Wisdom, Mentor Fates, Mentor Onyeka, and Mentor Benny. Um, I am hoping they're all on the call because I've seen Onyeka on the call. So Wisdom is already here. I can't see Faith for now. Faith and Benny, they are all parts of the panel of judges today. Okay, Faith is here, and Benny, if you're here, please say hello or something so I'll know you're also here. And then at the end of the day, all of the mentors also are also taking notes of your performance. And at the end of the day, when we try to judge and when we share the results, it is all clean and fair. We are not INEC in Nigeria. We are actually transparent. We hope to be transparent at the end of the day. Okay, so we'll be judging you based on a certain criteria. Some of them are: number one, the direction of your topic, the topic you are presenting on, how is it directed, how did you frame it, how are you sharing it. Number two, your time management. Did you work according to the specified time, or did you go above it, or did it have to take us to say your time is up before you were able to round up your presentation? That's also make you lose a point. Your slide design and your slide presentation, did you put a lot of work and creative flow into the slide as you were able to, as you were arranging your topic and sharing everything? Was it well arranged? Was it well designed? And number four, also, the topics you are sharing on, are they topics that we've actually thought on? Are they topics that are in line with technical writing? Are they topics that are beneficial to technical writing? We will also be judging you on that. And also, number five, your composure. How, even though we are not okay, this is actually a plus for you. If you are really comfortable, you can turn on your camera to present. If you're uncomfortable for today's game, if you're not comfortable, we can slide you and say it is fine if you teach us with your cameras off. But then we'll still be judging your composure by how you put your words, by how you talk, and how you teach us verbally. And then also at the end of the day, we will be judging you by how well you're able to deliver the topic you are teaching us on. So these are more. Can you guys hear me, please? Because I think I'm talking as
I
to
can hear
my
you loud
We
mic
and
can
clear.
hear you
as
perfectly well.
We can hear you. Can hear you.
because I
I
can
can
see
hear you,
some
but
people
I
say,
had to use my headphone.
wow, some people are saying the audio is low.
I can hear you. I can hear you very
Yes,
well, loud and clear.
it's slow. The audio
Loud
is
and
Hey,
very
clear.
thank you.
low.
I'm
Loud
using
and
So
clear.
headphones, but I can hear you very well. I'm not using
Loud
headphones. I
and
can hear
clear.
you very well.
It's fine. Thank you. It's fine. It's fine. So
So let's
please, for
do the
those that are
chat.
struggling to hear me, please, okay. Bosom, you were saying something.
Yeah, so let them use the chat when you want to make a
Yes,
suggestion.
please. Yeah, please use the chat. Use the chat so you don't. It's not too rowdy. Thank you. Okay, so if you can't hear me, please you can leave the call and then jump back later because I think my audio and my sound is good from my end here. Maybe it's your network or something. So I think I've shared every of the criteria we would be using to judge you today. So it is all transparent to everyone. So without further ado, I think we can start the presentation proper. Before that, I'm giving 5 minutes. If you have any question before the presentation starts, please go. It is going to be like this anyway. Before I give you the room to ask your question, after the first, I shared already the order of group presentation from bronze to turquoise. So it is like this: once the first group starts presenting, once it's already 10 minutes, the next group you're coming to present. But then I could go as this. I could just tell you under 2 seconds, under 3 seconds, team coral, you are next. So the next team goes up. But I don't want it to be like by the time one group is already rounding up, we are now still talking over and over for the next group to come on and present. So once your time is available, once you know you by the chat that was shared, we will all go together and present in that way. Um, but then there was something I should also actually share with everyone. The presenter for Team Ruby is going to might be unavailable by the time the group is presenting. So is it okay for Team Ruby to go first? If I have over 20 to 10, 20 upvotes, I would give the room for Team Ruby to start. And then we can now follow Team Bronze the way it is supposed to go. If we're not okay with it, then I think Team Ruby will have to find a way around that. Can I get 20? If I get 20 upvotes, or in the chat, you can say it is fine. We'll give the room to Team Ruby to go first. And at the end of the day, we will follow through with bronze, coral, crystal, and the rest of that. Okay. Team Ruby, you'll be going first then. Thank you, guys. So do we have any question or any contribution, anything you like clarification on before we start the event properly? Because I would not want any breaking by the time we start. So we can all leave the event early. Any question, any contribution? 4 hands are raised. Author Okonkwo. Okay, you've dropped your hand.
Actually, we asked to raise a hand if we were presenting. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so is there any question, any other contribution? So yes, if you are presenting, if you are the one presenting for your group, please just raise your hand and just have it there. But if there are no other question, there are no other contribution, we will start the meeting proper. So the presenter for Team Ruby, the floor is yours. It's 8:20.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Tomiwa,
Am I audible?
yes, you're audible.
Am I audible? Okay, I'll be sharing my screen right now. Uh, this is my- can you see my screen?
I can't see your screen
Not
from my
yet.
end yet.
The entire screen icon. So just give me a minute. Okay, kindly let me know if you can see my screen, please.
We can't see your screen yet. Can't see your screen yet.
Maybe my screen.
I'm sorry that the time is counting anyway. Okay, you can see your screen now.
Sure, actually.
You can see your screen now.
Thank you very much. So, good day, my name is Bob, presenting for Ruby, and looking about beginners guys to get up to the correct. So this is just like follow up to what we talked about some weeks ago about to open for. GitHub is a popular platform developers and technical writers use for open source. So this is the outline for our presentation. Introduction to GitHub, basics for GitHub technical writing, the best practices for you to know when using GitHub, and also the conclusion. So let's go straight into the introduction. Now, what is GitHub? Okay, so GitHub is a cloud-based storage system that allows you to use Git for collaboration and version control. So basically, what we are saying is that when we are working, right, when you are working on a project, a documentation for a particular company open sourcing, you would need to collaborate with other people, developers, other technical writers, and many other people. So for you to for a stable workflow, GitHub is actually one of the platforms you can use for collaboration and version control. We'll talk about what Git is in a minute and what version control also is in a minute. So principles of GitHub. So we have version control. Now, version control is the way we keep track of a particular project, the changes that goes through in that project, and the over time. So we look at the changes that happen to that project, and Git is just a system that we use to keep track of the changes that happen to a project. So let's say we are working on a documentation and we need to take out a particular part. We use Git to maintain that documentation as we walk through it. So what are the basics of GitHub? So there are some important terminologies that we use in GitHub, and that would be very important for us to know. So we have repository, we have pull requests, we have issues, we have branches, we have commits, releases, and contributors. There are also other terminologies that I will explain along the way. So I would like to use an analogy to explain this terminology. So we are let's imagine that this is a book club, right? And we are all working towards writing, let's say, a best-selling science fiction novel. So we can say that the repository is like the main file that we are using to work on the novel. So the repository will be like the major file. Like imagine on your system, you have a particular folder that houses all the videos that you watch on your system. So we can call that the repository. So now what is a pull request? You're still using this analogy of a book club. So let's say that a particular member was working on the prologue of the novel, and the person made a very terrible mistake. So to correct that mistake, another member has to send something called a pull request. So this pull request is like a member of the book club submitting a proposed change to like the novel we are writing, right, for review by other members of the club. So if there are issues, now issues are just a way to track bugs, features, requests, and other tasks related. So issues to the project. So if we are working on the novel and also like you notice that there's an issue with maybe a certain paragraph in a particular chapter, you submit an issue. So branches are ways you work with multiple versions of the same project simultaneously. So when we are working on a project, right, we don't want to make changes on the main project itself because working with it, if there's a mistake, the mistake happens on the main project. So a branch is like a particular new version where you can, test run changes, and if they are if they are good, then you can do something called a merge. So you can merge them with the main branch. That's the main work you are working on, and then it's good to go. So what are commits? Commits are changes to the repository that are saved permanently in the repository's history. So remember we talked about something called a branch. Now, if you make a particular change to that branch, it is called a commit. So the change does not automatically, just get accepted into the project you're working on. So it has to go through testing. It has to be approved that yes, this change is correct. So before it is now merged permanently with the repository. Now releases are a way to package and distribute a particular version of a project. So this is very simple. If you are working with your phone, you have like different versions of a particular software. It's the same thing when you look at the documentation. There are different versions of a particular documentation that they release at particular times. Now, contributors are people that make contributions to the repository by making change, submitting issues, and commenting on issues of pull requests. So, like the analogy I was saying, everybody here will be a contributor to that novel project. Now, what are the importances of GitHub? So when we are using GitHub, now number one is collaborative writing. GitHub allows multiple writers to collaborate on the same document. So this is very, very useful for large scale projects where multiple writers are working on different sections of the documentation. So one writer may be in charge of the novel analogy I was using. One writer may be in charge of the prologue, one writer may be in charge of the chapter one, and so on and so on. So another advantage or importance of GitHub is version control. Version control GitHub provides version control features that allow writers to keep track of changes to a document over time. This makes it easier to track changes, and when errors occur, we are able to identify them. And if we are able to easily roll back the changes that are necessary without necessarily affecting the main project. So also it allows for easy publishing, because this is hosted on the web directly, either through something called static HTML pages or interactive web applications. So it becomes very easy to publish to the web. Now there's also open source community, which is an importance of GitHub. So when you make projects open source, like Mr. Thompson told us the other day, GitHub is a hub for open source projects, making it an excellent platform for technical writers to get involved with open source communities that that allow for contributions. And with this, you can build an excellent portfolio. So you can also use GitHub to integrate with other tools, like Gitbook, which I know and further explain. So GitHub is also flexible to use, and there's also better document quality. So because of the version control, it allows for better communication, and GitHub is also used as a platform for technical writers to showcase their skill and provide professional portfolio. So GitHub for technical writing. Now, looking at what version control is, and we said we use Git to do version control. Git is a
Thank
typical
you,
version
Tamiwa.
control. My time is up. All right. Let me stop sharing my
Hello.
screen.
Thank you, Tomiwa. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was a good performance. But I don't think I'll be giving for the sake of brevity, I just want to point something to the mentors and the panel of judges here. Okay, so we are definitely in our different locations. Please, I think videos is affecting our call, so maybe we should just, since we have a lot of people on this call, which is actually shocking. 97 people are on this call. When we announce classes, you people are not available. Okay, so since we have this large number, please turn on your cameras, turn off your cameras. So let's just use the audio. So I will share something for the panel of judges that are listening to me on this call. We should all, based on the criteria we have in our mentors channel, we should all write our assessments based on all of those criteria and score them over 10 by ourselves there. So at the end of the day, when we are collating the results on a call, we can now share the results we have for every of the teams that are presented. So I already have my assessment for Team Ruby. So I know you're already working on your assessment also in your end. So just based on the criteria we're using to assess them, give a over 10, over 10, over 10, over 10 for everything. When we are sharing the results together, we collate it together. So again, thank you, Team Ruby, for representing your group. Thank you, Tomiwa, for representing your group. I know you guys will have your meeting at the end. At the end of the day, we'll have our assessments and we'll share what is what. I'm not saying anything about it. I'm not saying anything for now till at the end of the call. So, Team Bronze, you are up next. You are up next. Team Bronze, you are up next. The floor is yours. You are starting now at 8:32. Please, in 10 minutes, your time is up. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Am I audible enough? Can we hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Awesome, awesome. Good evening. Welcome to today's presentation. My name is Mboni Jennifer. I will be presenting Tim Burns in today's presentation. Our topic for today is titled GitHub, an essential technical writing tool for open source contribution. How exciting is that? So before I get into the gist of the matter, I like to do some introductions. So what is GitHub? What is open source project? What are open source projects? So GitHub is actually a web-based platform for collaboration and version control. Version control simply means like a system of managing your files or documents on GitHub. And GitHub enables us to work together as technical writers on different projects. So for instance, I'm in Nigeria and then somebody is in Cameroon. The person is able to collaborate with me real time, and we're not overwriting each other's work because of GitHub. So what are open source projects? Open source projects are typically free to use, to modify, to distribute under a permissive licensing. They are various licensing available on open source projects, and you can find them on the file or the document titled license in open source project on GitHub. Now, what does technical writers use GitHub to do? So technical writers use GitHub as a platform to connect to other other tech experts. So either technical writers, developers, anybody that has an account on GitHub, you can connect with them on GitHub, as well as find open source projects to contribute to, whether new or existing open source projects. But for you to actually get an open source project to contribute to, you need to set up an account with GitHub. How do you set up an account with GitHub? It's pretty much very easy. You only need your email address, and you just set it up. As soon as you verify, it's already set up. For us to contribute to open source projects, to make it easy, you need to search for this project. So as soon as you set up your account, you need to search for this project you want to contribute to using some syntax. So we've come up with some easy syntax you can use to find exact topics or open source project you want to contribute to. The first one is using the in syntax. So using this in syntax, for instance, you want to search for open source projects. Okay, so on GitHub, projects are actually termed repositories. So whenever I say repositories or projects, they basically mean the same thing. They're just they refer to a document, a file, or group of documents basically that are on GitHub. So yeah, either they're termed repositories on GitHub. You search these repositories by using the in syntax, and you can either use the name, the topic, the description, or the README. So for instance, we're looking for open source project. So we type in open source in name, and it gives us a list of repositories on GitHub that has open source in their name. If we do the same thing for topic, it gives us a list of open source projects that have open source in their topic, and then the same thing for description and README. In the course of this presentation, in case you do not hear me anymore, maybe during due to network or anything, please just maybe send me a chat message so then I'm able to read and come back. So here we have a search. So this is a GitHub screenshot. So here I have searched for open source projects in name, and here it gives me a list of projects. So do you see it has about 7,000 search results available, and then when I search the same thing for the description, it has over 133,000 results, and it goes on and on. We can also use the stars and the fox to find open source project that we want to contribute to. That's very easy. So stars basically refer to like a means of liking projects. So you can either give, on GitHub, you start a project. And how do you search for projects with the stars? You use stars : the number of result you want to receive. So if, for instance, I say stars : 50, it gives me a search result of repositories or open source projects that have only or exactly 50 projects. This picture here depicts using the star syntax, and you can see here we've searched for star : 50, and it gives us a search result of 81 repository results. You can also note that for the stars and the fox, you can do more than 50. So for instance, if I'm not sure of the particular number, I can do stars : less than or greater than, and yeah, I'll get a result of repositories that are greater than 50 or are less than the particular number of stars that I'm looking for. We can also search for repositories by their particular programming language, and to do that, you just need to use language : the particular programming language. For instance, I want to search for open source projects that are about maybe JavaScript. I just need to do language : JavaScript, and then I find a list. I will get a list of open source projects that have JavaScript as the main language. That was just. So the next point for why technical writers use GitHub. Technical writers use GitHub to send their contributions to open source projects by making pull requests. Pull request is basically like a means of sending messages to your colleagues or people that are working with you on a particular project. You just send them a message saying, please come and review my project. Come and check if it is up to par and if there's any contribution or any criticisms you have to make. So that's what pull request basically means in a nutshell. Technical writers also use GitHub to collaborate, basically. We collaborate and then achieve project success. It ensures that while me, I'm in Cameroon and somebody is in America, we are both working simultaneously on one project using GitHub as a platform. Another reason why technical writers use GitHub is because they use it. So technical writers can use open source contributions on GitHub as work portfolio. So as soon as you set up your account on GitHub, you basically have and you start to contribute. It is publicly available for everybody to see. So whether employers or clients, they can see your open source contribution, and that can serve as a portfolio for you going forward. Another reason why technical writers use GitHub is because GitHub can serve as, we use GitHub as a library to reference past open source projects. So you can use, as technical writers, we use it as existing code or documentation or resources to reference, instead of using like a starting point for your own work. Instead of coming up with a project from the beginning, you use the GitHub as a library to reference your past work, and it helps you to be more productive as a technical writer, produce better quality work, basically, better quality documentation. So here we have the list of resources that was used to compile this documentation, this presentation. You can look through or use it for more research. So basically, in a nutshell, GitHub helps us to track the changes that are made in our code and our documentation, offer valuable insights for our projects, in our different documentation, build a name for ourselves, because yes, we use that portfolio, build a name for ourselves in the tech world. So yeah, please let's not miss out on the opportunity to contribute as open source contributors. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Great, that was amazing. Okay, next person, let's go. Team Coral, you are up next. You're up next. I'm not.
Okay, hi. Good evening, everybody. I'm trying to share my screen now. Please confirm you can see my screen. Hi.
Not yet.
Not yet. We can't. Not yet.
What about now?
Not yet.
Okay. What about now? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay.
We can.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Odinaka Angunero, and I'm the representative for Team Coral. Our topic is Markdown. So let's just dive straight into it. What is Markdown? Markdown is a programming language that was developed in 2004, and it has increased in popularity over the years. It is a language used in creating structured documents, and can also be used in creating websites, and also can be used by developers. The core concepts of Markdown are basically, for every programming language today, we know they use a set of syntax. For Markdown, the syntax is quite straightforward, where it basically uses maybe alphabets or numbers to format different text, depending on how you want the text to really look. So really, why Markdown? Because you'll be wondering, why are we talking about Markdown today? As a technical writer today, you're always going to have to, at a point in your career path and your career journey, you would have to use Markdown. And Markdown is a very important tool in technical writing. Why is Markdown so important, and why are we even talking about Markdown today? Markdown is very easy to learn. Markdown has a simple syntax that is very easy to learn for people that have zero to little programming knowledge. They can build on the knowledge by taking courses or understanding Markdown, and essentially just translating that knowledge into the Markdown and trying to write structured documents or codes, or probably building a website, or developing a block of code, basically using Markdown. Also, we know that Markdown is platform independent. What does this mean? Platform independent means I have something, but I can apply it to X, Y, Z. It's not just restricted to X. In this instance, Markdown is platform independent, where you can run it on Mac or Mac operating system. It can also be used on Windows. It can also be used in Linux. It's just really platform independent, and can be used to share documents across different devices and platforms. Markdown is also text-based. What does it mean by being text-based? It is it's simply like you're writing plain text. It's not, the syntax are really straightforward. It's not about you writing writing like numerous blocks of code that are not able to like explain, or when you miss something. So it's just basically straightforward, like you're writing plain text. It's also very portable, meaning that Markdown files can be converted to PDF, Excel, HTML. Markdown is also very, very versatile. It's a versatile tool where you can also use it for not just technical writing. You can use it as a project manager, as a product manager, depending on how you want to go about it. What are the basic Markdown syntax? We have headings, bold and italics, links and images, list, code formatting, code blocks. So for heading, we Markdown has the syntax of like in the HTML hash heading, which is for, it has different types of heading. It has the different headings are denoted using hash, where you can add #1, #2 up to #6. This basically shows you the size. Please, can you hear me? This basically shows you,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
this basically shows you
We
the
can hear you.
size of the heading, or how you want it to look. For the bold and italics, the text is wrapped, which is bold and italics are like really similar. For bold, you have to use 2 asterisks. Let's say you want to make a word visa bold, 1 asterisk, 2 asterisk. I write the word visa, I close it with 1 asterisk, 2 asterisks. I can either do that, or I use underscore underscore, double underscores for bold to make a text bold. But if I want to make a text italics, it is 1 asterisk visa, 1 asterisk, or underscore visa underscore. So that's basically the basic difference between the bold and italics. For bold, it's 2 asterisks or 2 underscores. For italics, it is 1 asterisk or 1 underscore. For the links and images, you basically just write a code which you for the link name, you can just basically write the link name, closing it with the square bracket. Then you can put the link URL in parentheses. Let's say you have a link for MS Word, and I want the link to show me, okay, MS Word, and I put the www.msword in the parentheses here. When I hover over what I'm going to see, my output will be MS Word, and when I hover over the MS Word, I'm going to see www.msword. So it doesn't spell out the complete link for you. For the list, we have ordered and unordered list, which is for the ordered list, you can just put 1 dot, write the first list, 2 dot second list, 3 dot second list. For the unordered list, you can use plus tab, or plus dash, or asterisk to really just create the unordered list, which will give you something like bullet points. We also have code formatting, which is denoted by the backticks. We can also include code blocks in our documentation by also using like 3 backticks. It shows you exactly how the code would be. Probably you want to write the code in Java, and you do put your 3 backticks and write your code. It shows you just exactly how it is in Java. We also have Markdown techniques, advanced Markdown techniques, which is custom cascading style sheets. We can also use this to define the style, or how we modify or beautify how we want our text to look like. For this example, it's basically just showing you, I want the text to show me red color, font size 16. That's basically what it's going to do, and I'm going to get an output like that. We also have the maths and latex support, which shows that it can really just solve math, give us solve math problem, and also show matrix equations and all of that. Okay, we can also do diagrams and flowcharts using Markdown. Also, we can also highlight syntax in Markdown. So really, for the table of contents using Markdown, if I have written a document and I have different sections of my document, introduction, overview, objective, and I want to access a section of my document, I can just put a hash before the introduction. This really gives simplicity when you are looking for something. You're not going through the entire document. Once you just click from the table of content, it takes you directly to what you're looking for. So the criteria for Markdown editors is pricing, customability of the editor, ease of use, and quality of the user interface, features provided, ideal audience. Markdown editors, we have the byword. The byword is not a free Markdown editor. It is paid. and it is 10.99. We also have Draft, Delinga, and Stack Edit, which are free, but Stack Edit is open source. We also have text editors that support Markdowns and their extensions. We have Visual Studio Code. The VS Markdown extensions are Markdown all-in-one, dictionary completion, paste image, plant UML, Markdown emoji. We have Atom, which is Atom Markdown extension. We can also use Sublime Text in writing Markdown codes. In conclusion, basically, Markdown is a programming language that has advanced over time. And I know that from 2014 now, it's still evolving. In the future, we do not know the capability of Markdown, and it's going to do more than it's doing today. Thank you so much. I can also share the document when I am done, probably after the class, just for insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Coral. Thank you very much. Let's go, Team Crystal. You are next. You are starting by 8:50. Oh, you're already here. 10 minutes. Thank you.
Right, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
Yes, you
George.
can.
Yeah.
Let's
Yes.
use the chat, please.
All right, good evening. My name is George Donte, and I'll be representing Team Crystal in this presentation. And I'll be talking about an introduction to technical writing and open source. I want you to sit down and learn as I take you through this journey. So technical writing is one of the trendy skills. If you go on Twitter, Facebook, and every other tech space, you see people talking about technical writing, how to get involved, how to make money from it. So it has become a skill where everyone wants to go in. But do you really know what it means? Do you know when they mention open source? Do you really understand what it means to be a technical writer and its relationship to open source? So just follow me as I take you through what it's all about. Technical writing is the type of writing that tries to communicate complex information and instruction to targeted audience. The idea is not often to show that you can actually show your prowess in English, but then to break down content that common users can understand. So that's always the idea. And technical writing is applied in so many fields, in science, engineering, in so many fields, and so it has become a very, very trendy skill in this era. And so we have different forms of technical writing. We have user manuals. Most of us that buy equipment, you can see maybe you just bought a new standing fan. It comes with a manual that shows you how to operate that device. So that thing now, the process of coming up with that document is technical writing. We have user manuals. We have reports that provide detailed information about specific topics. We have white papers that are used to explain, technology in depth. Maybe, for example, someone just came up with a new framework and called it technical writing OS, and so it just explains with a white paper how the technology works. And then we have online help documents. When you're trying to get support for a particular product or service. And then, of course, technical writing has principles that guides it. You can't just start writing. You need to follow a particular principle that will help you come up with the best document. Number one is clarity. Of course, clear to understand. You don't want grammar in your content, like clear content that users can understand and not confuse them. And then we have conciseness. That means it should be brief as possible, but still convey the information that it is meant to. Like less is more. You get. And then we have accuracy, of course, accurate and factual information, so that you won't misguide people or misinform people. Organization helps you to arrange your writing in a logical manner so that it can be easy to follow. Something about information hierarchy, all those kind of arrangements. It's about organization. And then we have tone. Tone is based on the audience. Some audience you have to be professional, some you have to be casual, some you have to be different kinds. So tone just depends on the audience, and so you need to maintain a consistent tone, sometimes also based on the audience and what you're writing for. And then we have steps in technical writing. You don't just start jotting down things and then publishing them. You have to go through a step to make sure that your information is coherent, like it's logical and it's making sense. Number one is collecting information. Now, when you want to write, you don't just write from your head sometimes. You have to do research on what you're writing about so that you can see what people have written about that topic before and then bring it to your own. And then when you get that research, it takes us to number two, where we have to create a writing structure. Like, okay, how will I organize this information that I've got now? What will come first? What can come second? So that kind of information hierarchy, organization in a sequence manner is what that second process is all about. And then we have the writing process, the actual process of putting English, your grammar, and those information in a very concise manner and everything. And then this particular fourth step, editing, always comes because that no writing is complete without editing and editions. No writing is complete. You still have to go back. And one way to still edit documents or a technical written document is that you need to submit it to a technical people to like review the document, because it is when people review the document that you can see corrections to make and go back to step 4 to edit them. So after back and forth with 4 and 5, editing, review, it takes you to number 6, which is publishing the technical content. No read your document and enjoy the information you've written. Of course, we have tools that we use in technical writing. Microsoft Word. These days, people use Google Docs more often because it allows for collaboration. We have Grammarly for checks and English checking. We have VS Code. We have Twords, and we have Evernote that helps in your writing process and all. And then now, open source, the big guy. Open source just means that there's a software somewhere that everybody is contributing to, and then they are trying to like improve that software and every other thing. Now, it is not limited to a software. It can be a document, can be a product, can be something else. But just know that it is in a public space where several people can contribute to it and improve on that document. You understand? So that means that this open source now allows for collaboration among people, developers, writers, designers, engineers, and sharing of ideas and content amongst these people. Now, technical writing for open source just means that we are creating written documents for software projects that are in the public space. Do you understand? It means that you are creating written content, documentations for software that are in the open source space, so that these documents can also it also means that these documents can be accessed by anyone and improved upon. So that's what it just means now. So you can see there's technical writing and there's open source, and then there's technical writing for open source, writing for software that are already in the public domain. Now, why is open source important in technical writing? Follow me. Number one is community involvement. Now, because that technical writers work closely with the open source community, developers, users, and every other thing, it ensures that documentation will meet specific needs. Exactly. So that means more people are involved in it, and so it will help for faster development of that software and its documentation. And of course, if this technical written document is open source, it means that more people can check it, like it can be checked in every angles to ensure transparency in the content. And of course, it will also, it also helps in flexibility in a sense that different issues can be addressed, because there are more people are in the space to see issues that a written document can, help correct and help improve upon. And then why is open source important in technical writing? Because that, of course, if you allow projects to be open to everybody, it makes room for ideas to come up. So let's say I have a small idea, I put it in the open space. So before I know, 5 people come and then they have bigger ideas for that particular project. And then so the project would expand, and you don't know where the next startup can come from. And then we have the idea of low cost in the sense that, since more hands are on it, softwares will be developed in a short time and with a small cost. Unlike when I am the only one working on this software. In fact, I would want to make money from it. But then with open source softwares in technical writing, there's low cost and faster development and writing also. And then in conclusion, technical writing and open source are like two brothers. You can't just be writing alone. You need people to like also contribute to things to make meaningful and impactful documentations for software and everything. So I hope with this with this presentation, I have been able to make you understand technical writing, open source, and their relationship in making the world of tech a better space. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Crystal. Thank
Yeah.
you. Team Diamond, are you available? Elizabeth Bassi, I think you're the one.
Yes, I'm available. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Oh,
It just told me that I'm backing with my laptop is down. It comes to me. So yes, I'm available. You can just sit down with us.
that's you are for Team Emerald.
So I'm putting downward.
Diamond. Okay, please go on then. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me turn that thing. Please, if I turn my, please, if I turn my screen out, please let me know. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Omen Joshua, and I'm presenting in Diamond. So, well, what we're talking today is tools used in technical writing. We're talking about the tools used in technical writing. Before we go further, before we talk about the tools used in technical writing, first, what is technical writing? Technical writing is the art of writing, is the art of writing that teaches us how to do something. That is, it's all about instructions. How do we do this? How do we do that? But it's not just all about how do we do it. How do what you not do it. What is is how do we do a technical concept? Like how do we operate Google? How do we use properly JavaScript? So that's what technical writing is all about. So you have to do something in a technical way. So why technical tools are important? We are talking about technical writing, why everyone should use technical writing. Question is why are these tools important? One, it helps us to write effectively and accurately. Two, it is also be consistent with our team. This is also collaborate with one another. As we all know, as technical writers, as we move further and higher in our field, there is a probability that we will go into open source. So what are the tools that will make you to go? What are the software tools for open source? These are the tools that we got here. Then, tools in technical writing. We have been writing tools, editing tools, graphics and media tools, collaboration tools, communication tools, documentation tools, and student management tools. First, then next, what are writing tools? Writing tools are tools that text writers, text users to create, edit, format, and publish technical documentation. Example of writing tools, we have the Google Docs, we have the MS Word, we have the Markdown editor, any Markdown editor that you know of. The popular one here is VS These are writing tools that enable technical writers to write and format documents properly. This is editing tools. As technical writers, after we have written our technical documents, we have to edit our work before we publish it. And this is possible to be editing tools. So editing tools help users to reduce our work, define or even write different content. Example that is Grammarly. What Grammarly does is it helps users to correct miscorrect words, helps users to correct some sentence structure and everything. And it's also there's also a special feature for the guys who also doing Grammarly. There are three books. Three books just all about for applications. That's what three books is all about. For example, now I want to write a technical document. Copy something from either a computer ChatGPT, for example, and I want to paraphrase it. By the time I copy a sentence in ChatGPT, then I go to Freeboot paraphrase. So Freeboot is a paraphrasing tool, and it's also a strong editing tool that we can write. Next is graphic and media tools. As you all know, a picture is more than a thousand words. So as technical writers, it is important that we use that it's important that we use pictures to write our work. So we have various graphic tools. We have the Canva, we have the Photoshop, we have the After Effects and Premiere Pro. All these graphic tools, they help users, especially non-technical users, to understand your documents, to understand your technical documents properly. The next is the collaboration tools. Collaboration tools are tools that help users to communicate with one another and to also to work together with one another. For example, now as I'm speaking with you now, I'm in Benin. If I'm working with somebody that is in Lagos, we are working on a document. How do we collaborate with one and another? We use collaboration tools, and we have many collaboration tools. We have the Google Docs. We have the VS Code like um, GitHub. I mean, so all these are collaboration tools that help users to communicate with one another and to make sure that the technical document that are publishing is successful. And the next is communication tools. These are tools that enable writers to communicate effectively with one another and with their team members. For example, like I said, that I'm in Benin and I'm working on the projects. For example, now I'm my friend Lizzie. We are working on a project, on a technical writing project together. Instead of the old ways of going to the post office to push our documents, then by the time she writes her own push on documents to me. No, all these are tools that enable us to communicate effectively and not sending letters of olden days. And proper communication tools we have now, we have the Slack, we have the email, we have the Google Meet as we're using currently. We also have the Microsoft Teams. Documentation tools. These are tools that allow for creating, managing, and organizing of all types of documentation, ranging from API documentation, software guides, tutorials, user manuals, etc. And examples of this, we have the Git buckets, we have the Confluence, and we have the Google Docs. Then project management tools. These are tools that help users to plan a project, track and manage the project successfully. For example, now, let me say Team Diamond are working on a tutorial, or they're working on a technical guide for something. How do we plan our projects? We use proper project management tools like Trello, for example. So what we just got to do is to just plan, okay, now how many months, how many weeks are we going to do these projects? We have written that down. Then we not break it each. They will not break those bigger projects into sub projects, and this is done properly with the help of project management tools. And one of the popular project management tools we all know is Trello. Other examples are the ClickUp, Asana, and Jira. Then the next is project workflow. As a technical writer, what are the project workflow? Like, how are we going to start our projects? One, we create our project plans with Trello. We write it. Then, after creating the project plans with Trello, what we want to do, what each participant in the group are doing, then we write our project to Google Docs or VS Code. Then we edit what we have written with either Quibbot or Grammarly. Like I said, Quibbot is a paraphrasing tool, and Grammarly also help you to correct misspelled words and sentence structure. Create graphics using Canva or Photoshop. Like I said, a picture speaks more than 1,000 words, so it's proper to always use graphics for your writing. Then share your documents. Then communicate it with your team members. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Thank you very much. That was on time. Can we go on? Team Emerald. Team Emerald, please.
No, it's not easy. Jesus Christ. Shit.
You have 10 minutes. Thank you. You're starting already, 9:08.
Please kindly confirm if you can hear me, and also if you can see my screen loud and clear.
You can see.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Dauda Lawa, representing Team Emerald. Tonight, we're going to talk about the introduction to technical writing. So these are our outlines. So For this presentation, we're going to talk about technical writing, tools and skills needed for you to get started with technical writing, challenges faced by technical writers, information architecture, and conclusion. At the end of this class, you must have a basic understanding of technical writing and also how you can get started in technical writing journey. Now, let me ask you this question. How are you going to feel like if you buy a laptop, you understand, without any name on it, without any details on it? How are you going to feel like if you're browsing on a website without any about section, FAQ, and others? As a developer, how are you going to feel like if you are trying to contribute to an open source without any kind of documentation about how you can set up the project? It won't be proper. Technical writing as a career is a writing niche in high demand and pays very well, especially if you have skills in structural authoring and API documentation. Now, what is technical writing? Technical writing is a type of writing that provides clear and concise instructions or explanation about technical topics, such as computer programs, medical procedures, or any scientific experiments. It's also the act of providing detail-oriented instruction to help users understand a specific skill or products. Now, what are the benefits of you learning technical writing as a developer? Technical writing helps you as a developer to communicate easily with your in-groups and out-groups teammates. How are you going to feel like if you are a developer and you want to communicate with your colleagues and you don't know when to use, okay, push, git branch, and some other key terms in communicating with others? Because whenever you are working on a project, you may run into problem, but being able to communicate that kind of problem also is a skill needed for you to operate in this environment. Technical writing forces you to get into the habit of putting abstract concepts into understandable words. Also, technical writing is very useful in creating FU guides and other forms of documentation for the software you are trying to develop, because nobody understands your product better than you. Also, technical writing makes you a more valuable employee, because as a technical writer and developer, you communicate well with others. Now, what are the benefits of technical writing to the end users? You know, they are the one making use of the product, whether website, application, or any other products from technology industry. Technical writing helps a person to better understand how new technology, and it also increases his or her ability of its adoption. For instance, everybody is talking about ChatGPT. It's only applicable to people that are in tech environment that will really understand, okay, this is ChatGPT. To the people that are layman, they may be wondering what's the meaning of ChatGPT. But if you are someone that is conversant with technical writing, at least you have a basic understanding of what this ChatGPT can do for you, and some other kind of application and some other website like that. So it improves your communication skills and thinking process, because you can't be a reader without being able to think critically. And also, it's also allow you to think outside the box, because you don't act like other people, because you are conversant with the changes in tech environments. Now, what are the tools and skills needed for you to get started in this technical writing journey? Please, if you can hear me loud and clear, type it on the chat section. Keep going. Now, what are the tools needed for you to work in this environment as a technical writer? We have keyboards paraphrasing tool, which is also we have some other paraphrasing tools. We have Grammarly, because we make use of Grammarly to check your grammar, because in this environment, it's very essential for you to follow the syntax and follow the grammar procedure, like, because you need to simplify the concept to the broadest minimum. Also, we use SEO for trying to create an SEO content. Now, also we have Windows Nimby tools, we have SML and some others. Also, we have writing tools like Notion, Dropbox, because as a writer, you must work with tools. You must work with tools. Now, we are done with the tools. What are the skills needed for you to operate in this environment as a writer? The number one and the most important is being able to write. It is writing skill. Being able to write is very essential, because for you to be a designer, you must be able to design. For you to be a teacher, you must be able to teach. Likewise, for you to be a writer, you must be able to write. The second is being able to research, because every day you will keep doing research. There's no way you can operate in this environment without constant research. Three, audience knowledge. If you get it wrong at this stage, there's nothing good in your content again. You need to understand, are you writing for developer or you are writing for general user, so that you can make use of the proper terminologies that they will be able to comprehend. Without getting this right, then your content is not useful. For instance, if you are trying to create a tutorial or a kind of guide on how to solve maybe like Git push problem, and you are now telling me about the history of GitHub, what's the need of that? As a developer, anytime I'm trying to solve a problem like that, I'm not interested in reading about the history of GitHub. I'm interested in solving the problem. And also, you need to understand the technical details of this industry. For instance, if you want to write a software development environment, as a technical writer, you must understand the technology, whether you want to write for React, JavaScript, any kind of technology, Kubernetes, you must understand it before you write about it. If you don't have technical knowledge, there's nothing for you to write about. Also, you must understand how to design, because there are some content that we want you to design. Like if you are writing a tutorial, you can prepare a flyer for your content. Also, you must be able to work collaboratively with others, because in this environment, you're going to be working with product designer, you're going to be working with developer, you're going to be working with project manager and others, and you may be sleeping in your room, and the project manager will just say, this task has been assigned to you, you have to work on them. And so all those stuff, you have to find a way to work with them. That is being able to work with the team. Also, you must be able to think critically as you're working with others. Now, next one is information architecture. Information architecture is the organization and structure of documentation that allows readers to use it most efficiently. This information architecture is the backbone of documentation, is the backbone of your tutorial, is the backbone of your guide. If you get it wrong, there's nothing there again. Because, for instance, if you're preparing a documentation for React, you must be able to tell me why I need to learn it, the installation process, down to the last stage. Because if you're telling me about the framework and you're telling me how to build a project directly without telling me how to set it up on my system, then it's not useful for me to make use of it. Also, if I'm trying to contribute to another open source, you don't tell me what the project is all about, I can contribute to it, and some other stuff, and the list of people that are already contributor. So the way you format your document is very, very essential, and is the backbone. If you get it wrong, you understand, is a zero, understand, for the kind of information you are preparing. So it's enabled to use that to find information and understand logical connections between pieces of information. Now we have we have the style guide, which is the first one under information architecture. This style guide can be something as simple as a list of decisions you have made about how to refer to different items you have frequently write about. For instance, if you are trying to write a tutorial, you need to define, okay, what are the requirements for someone to be able to use this tutorial? Okay, I want to write about definition. You must be able to format the document. So, and also we have some Polar style guide that you can check out. Also, we have Apple style guide, Microsoft writing style guide, Google developer documentation, and some other style guide. So you can check them. It's the format on how you must format the content, you understand? Because that is the standard for writing and designing content on the global space. Now, we have information structure, because the structure of your content determines who uses it and how they use it. Regardless of the type of information which is being presented, the structure of technical writing is paramount, because the structure refers to the layout and format in which you are presenting your content to the end user. And the writing as a good structure is what we refer to as a user-friendly content. Now, what are the challenges being faced as a technical writer? Because there is no way you can work in this environment without facing challenges. Number one is lack of information about the products. Number two is lack of organization, collaboration with other experts, because there is no way you can work alone in this environment. You must be able to collaborate with others. Gathering information from subject matter, because sometimes you have to divert to another environment to write about, but you must be able to write on it. You must be able to get information from others, or being able to get people to review your work. Now, summary: technical writing is a valuable skill and rewarding skill. Technical writing as a developer opens doors to opportunity, and it serves as a means to learn, relearn, and earn extra cash along with your daily job. Thanks. Welcome to the technical writing journey. I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you, Coach Emerald. Let's go forward. The next team on the line, Team Gold. Are you ready? Team Gold.
Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I am presenting.
You can't see your screen.
Uh, what is this, man? Okay. Okay, you can see my screen now, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Hello. Okay, so welcome to Team Gold. The topic is open source, a quick introduction to open source. So in the few minutes left, we'll talk about open source, the awesome benefits it gives you, how you can get started contributing to open source projects, and the best practices to do that, and the tips to make your contribution stand out, and resources you'll be needing to do that. So basically, the definition according to opensource.com, it refers to any software or program or project or anything that its source is publicly available. So I will use an analogy. Let's say we are writing a book titled 2023 Elections, right? And it is publicly available. Everyone in this call can contribute to it. We can add what happened in our polling unit and all of that. Now that we can call an open source project because everyone can contribute, everyone can write their story. Now, why is open source important? It's important because it's flexible, it's reliable, it's extensible. It can be used for a whole lot of things. Most of us use products like Microsoft Office, Slack, and all of that. These are proprietary products. You cannot extend them. You only use what the vendor gives you, irrespective of quality of service and support. But in open source systems, software projects, if you don't like what you're seeing, you can fork the code and edit it. You can extend it, you can integrate to custom systems. And then who can contribute? Absolutely anyone. Are you a writer? Are you a designer? Are you even a marketer? Are you a developer? You can contribute to an open source project. Now, what are the benefits of doing this? Why should you actually pay attention to open source? One, gaining experience. Most of us, we leave school or we are switching careers and we want to put stuff in our CV and say, yes, we've done this before. Open source is your channel to that. So pick an open source project related to the career you are shifting to and make some contributions, learn about it, even if it's installation guide, even if it's UI improvement, whatever it is, you can add that to your CV, which builds you up to a potential employer. It also helps you to collaborate with others, peer programming, learning how to work with others, appreciating different culture, learning different lines and algorithm and behavior of others. Another is your portfolio. Build your portfolio, put it also on your CV of a future clients. And finally, giving back to communities. Because yeah, we use a whole lot of these free tools, but we forget that human beings actually write them. Now, how do you get started with open source projects? So there are different platforms you could choose a project. So you could jump on GitHub, you could jump on OpenHatch, Google Summer of Code, Bitbucket, GitLab, OpenSearch, and even Google can help you with that. Then you find a community. Most of the projects out there have communities on Slack, Discord, Telegram groups. There you see like minds, there you see people who are dealing with this. Then you also set up your environment, if it's a software where you set it up and work with it. Contributing to open source projects is very simple. There are a lot of things you could do. You can find a bug that's an error in the code and fix that and do a pull request. You can actually add new features to the software or point out features that are conflicting with something else, which is also a bug. You can write documentations. A lot of open source projects lack clear and concise documentation. It's one of the major issues out there. Then you can review the code. What code powers this thing? How does the programmers think? Are there better ways you can write better code to either optimize memory or make this software faster? What are the practices for contributing? Number one, communicating effectively with the community. Communication is also a major problem among remote workers. So by collaborating with people on open source project, you get to learn this communication skill. Using clear language, whether you are writing or speaking, you can actually communicate what you're trying to solve. Follow the coding standard. Every project out there has a guideline, usually called a README. You put it together and you're able to contribute effectively without errors. Being patient and persistent. There are sometimes you fork a code, work on it, and do a pull request, and it takes months for it to get approved. It's not a problem. It's actually helping you to build up and learn patience. And there are tips for successfully contributing. While you follow the project guideline and make sure you stay in line to avoid getting kicked out by the maintainers of the project, you start small. It can be a typo there. It can be a suggestion on the design of the software. You can test your changes by ensuring that the thing you're trying to push is worth it and that the stuff you've corrected is in line with the guideline. You can ask for help from other project collaborators or even the maintainer. If you're a programmer, you write code that is readable, and you obviously use the right comments to help other programmers know what you're trying to do. And once again, be patient about it. So there are useful resources to help you in your open source journey. So here are a few of them. We can always share this later so you can access the link. Through this link, you understand how to get started, even have links to some interesting projects you can work with. Thank you for your time. Questions?
Yeah, sorry, let me pause.
Okay, wait. Boss, wait, let me call him something. Author wisdom. If you know, you know. We can go on.
I don't know why you sound like me. I don't know, but continue, guys.
Okay, let's go on. That was too much because I know what is going on, but I don't know what's going on. Let's continue. Okay, Team Jewel, are you ready? Team Jewel,
Yes,
you
I'm
are
sure it's
going
ready.
now.
So
Let's go.
okay, let me share my screen. Good evening, everyone. Can you see my screen? I can't hear you clearly. Please, can
Yeah, I can see it.
okay, so I can just start. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Edozi Onyanuse, and I'm making a presentation for Team Jewel on the topic, the role of technical writing in open source projects, best practices and strategies. So the first thing first, what is open source or what is open source project? So what are open source projects? Open source projects are basically projects that are made accessible to the public, where the public can come, contribute to them, use them and modify them. They are done in such a manner to encourage innovation and collaboration and the world can contribute. I can't hear you clearly, sorry. Should I go on?
Please go on.
People can contribute to open source in different roles. We have developers, we have designers, we have QA testers, we have translators, and we have technical writers, which is our focus of today. So in what ways, or who are technical writers, first of all? So technical writing is a form of writing where people, technical writers, can communicate technical information in such a manner that is very clear and concise to a particular audience. So it involves using documents or different forms of technical writing, such as user guide, articles, tutorials, API documentation, and the rest of that, whereby they can break down complex concepts and complex procedures to people so they can understand it very, very seamlessly or in a manner which they can grab it very easily. So in what way now is technical writing connected to open source actually? Now we've said that open source is basically the development of software in public so different people can contribute to it. And this also implies that there's also a closed source of software, which is basically for most companies whereby they have their own employees or they have particular contractors which they've given access to to come and build stuff for them or contribute to their own software. So, but in open source now, we have people that are, some of them might not even be paid, they might be volunteering, or they might just be doing it for fun, contributing to it. So in the ideal way of building software, we have different parts or different aspects where people, you have front-end developers, back-end, QA testers, and the rest of this. And this means that all these particular different aspects of this product have to all work seamlessly. So for them to work seamlessly, it has to mean that they have to understand what each and every other person is doing. That is what we call handoff in stuff like this, whereby a developer on the back end has done something, has created an API, and is handing it off to the front end. And the front end does not understand what the guy did on the back end. So you need something like an API documentation to understand, okay, when I make this particular call, this is what I'm expecting. So the technical writers are the people now that kind of strings each part of the product or each part of the project so that they can all work seamlessly, so that they can all understand what each particular person is doing. Now, like a developer that has worked on something 3 years ago and has not dropped some kind of documentation, then a new person coming to the team does not understand what the legacy code is saying. So the technical writers now, they contribute or they write and edit, edit and publish the documentation that guides every other thing or how the product itself or the project itself runs from the development stage down to the end user stage. So this is how technical writing is involved in open source. And technical writing is very, very involved in very, very important in open source, because in 2017, we had a survey from GitHub where they said that one of the biggest challenges in project like this is that most people were confused because they had incomplete documentation, and this went on to affect or prevent them from contributing to the open source project. So how can technical writers contribute to open source project? Basically, we have 4 major ways in which people can contribute to open source project. We have the user-centric documentation, we have the developer-centric documentation, we have the user experience documentation, and the community-centric documentation. The user-centric documentation is just concerned with the end user. That is, we have built a product and we want to market it to consumers. It just involves how-to guide, user manuals, and user guide and stuff like that that can show them how to use it. So developer-centric documentation is principally for developers, and this involves documentation or technical writing such as API documentation, maintenance manuals, SDK documentation, or system architecture documentation, whereby the developers can understand how to build, how to operate, and how to maintain the software. Then there's user experience documentation that involves basically copies that will enhance the user experience of the product. And this involves both the developer themselves and also the end user. Then there's the community-centric documentation that involves for the community. The community could be people that are not actively using the product, or they are not necessarily developers. They could just be people that want to know more about the product or the project, and want to get to understand it. So this community-centric documentation involves stuff like articles, blogs, transcripts for videos, and any other thing that you are projecting to a community to understand the project or the product. Then the importance of technical writers in open source. First of all, it is clear communication, because like I said, for you to work on an open source project, there are different aspects to it. There are different people in different roles contributing to this thing. So there has to be the kind of clear communication between each part of the people, each aspect of the project, or each aspect of the product. Then the improved documentation will also lead to number 3, which is user adoption, whereby if you write a documentation in such a way that is appreciated, that is going to minimize bugs and minimize people having issues with it, it is going to improve the usability of this product. That is, people would want to use it, people have ease using it, and it's going to improve the user experience. Then there's also the enhanced collaboration, which is the essence of open source, where people can collaborate from different parts of the world. Like I said also before, it improves user experience. Then translation also, because you can translate this documentation to different languages for accessibility purposes. Then there's also community building. Then the best practices and strategies. First things first, when contributing to open source, the number 1 tip you should hold in your hand is that you should know your audience. Remember, the purpose of technical writing is that we are writing in such a manner to break down complex concepts to people. So you have to know your audience, you have to understand their need, you have to understand their expectation, and this will help you write a documentation that is relevant to them valuable and also engaging. Then number two, you have to actually make use of visuals. This involves charts, pictures, or even memes, anything that will basically refreshing their mind and not make it seem like documentation is boring and voluminous. Another example is to use example. Another tip, sorry, is to use example. Remember, we are breaking abstract and complex ideas. So it will be very, very intelligent for us to use examples so these people can go back to them, and if they are working on that same thing or something that is similar, they can use the example that is laid down in documentation to go on to do what they are doing. Then other strategies we can see is that the use of plain grammar or the use of plain language. Also review your project documentation so that you can understand the expectation and the workflow to prevent mistakes. Also organize your content in such a manner whereby it is easy to read and the content can be easily accessible. Then also, and which is the most important thing, is to always get feedback. I don't think anyone that is working in any industry that does not grow by or does not listen to feedback and is expecting to grow. One of the most important things stuff like this is that we should also always listen to feedback and hear from the people we are working for so we can actually have a better output. So other tips we can see here are basically you should first of all place your own strength or weaknesses, depends on whatever you are doing. You should also follow the style guide and the contribution guide, pay attention to your grammar, and also keep up to date with the current or the latest updates in the open source project so you can know what adjustments to make. Then the conclusion in all of this is that we should all know that technical writers are as important to open source projects as the code contributions that are in it. So it does not mean that we should have in our mindset, we should have a mentality that we are just coming to do them a favor. No, not just that. Actually, we are coming to put in our best. And like I said, the technical writer is important to this thing because he ensures the synchronicity of this project. He ensures that every other part is going to hand off to each other part in a manner that's going to allow the project to work well. So essentially, we can say that the technical writer or the technical documentation is actually the backbone of this. So for you to be a good technical writer or to contribute well to open source, you have to have in mind that it includes a combination of technical skills, collaboration, and persistence. So I believe by following these tips and strategy that we have listed here, that you can go on to contribute to open source, thereby enhancing your own skills and building your own professional networks. Thank you for listening. I hope people, why is everyone silent?
Yeah, nice job. Next thing, please. Who's next thing in line? Sorry, is having a bad network. So who is the next team? Just okay, team take over.
Can you just type in the comments I have? If you have typed, if you have ever used Wikipedia to search for any content at all, can I see you?
You're very far from your mic.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
So my question is, how many of us here have used Wikipedia in the past or continue to use it presently?
Okay, let's see the chat, please.
Yes, let's see the chat. Thank you very much. Just a little I have. All right. Thank you very much, Emilia. Now, the next question is, how many of us here have used the media player that is popularly known as VLC to watch movies or to maybe stream content for those that use it to stream content? If you have, just write I have. All right. Thank you very much. Now, one last question. I will be reaching with this one. Yeah, thank you. How many of us here have tried using the 3D software called Blender? I don't know if anybody knows Blender here. I believe we may have some 3D artists here. Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much. Now, there is one thing all these softwares I've mentioned have in common, and that is they are all open source softwares. Now, like several of the other presenters that have spoken before us have spoken about open source, and I'm sure most of us here are not oblivious to the term open source. But allow me to define it again. Now, open source, just like the name implies, is a software whose source code is open to be freely modified, used, and distributed. Now, that's the basic of what open source is. Now, in our presentation today, in Simple, my partner and I will be taking us through what open source is, why we should contribute to open source, and how we can contribute to open source. So let's go. Now, we've looked at what open source is and the definition of open source. We're going to look at why we should contribute to open source and why open source is important for us. So there are a few reasons why open source is important, and we have collaboration, for transparency, for cost, and for career growth. We know that collaboration is important to any software development lifecycle and any more interpersonal relationship or interpersonal form of work. We know that collaboration is important. And for you to improve your collaboration and communication skills, it's important to begin to work on these kinds of projects. Moving on to transparency, many of us have heard about how we see that we talk about something with our friends and then a few minutes later we see an ad about it. Now, we always point fingers to companies like Google, companies like TikTok, saying that, okay, they're spying on us. We can never truly know because these companies are not open source. But if they were to be open source, we could easily check their source code and find out if truly we are being spied on. Now, these are some of the importance of open source. Now, if you ever consider going into open source, contributing to open source, you will have to have a level of some levels of skills needed to contribute in open source. That's what many people think. But the short answer to who can contribute in open source is virtually anybody. Right now, on this call, everybody can contribute to open source. With our very level of skills and our very levels of understanding of open source, we can contribute to open source. But what you will do in open source differs and varies. There are several ways we can contribute to open source, and a few ways are documentation, testing, translation, design, and coding. For documentation, we'll have to look into things like the onboarding documentation, internal and external documentation, how-to, tutorials, blogs, FAQs, many of what we already do on our social media pages that social media guys like to call content creation can be aligned to documentation in Tenko writing open source. Another is testing. You don't need any significant technical or advanced skill to be able to test software. Many professionals have been able to go into the line of what we call quality assurance testing. You don't have to be a quality assurance tester or a quality assurance engineer to be able to test code. It's as simple as opening your phone and going through the software and checking if you find any bug or have any issues with the phone and being able to report that. That is as simple as open source gets. Or going over to design. Many of us here have design skills. We can apply those skills in open source platforms and open source contribution. And lastly, we have coding. You don't even have to have advanced coding skills to be able to contribute to open source. With your little knowledge of coding and programming, you can be able to participate and contribute to open source. Moving on to our next slide, we're going to look at the steps to contributing to open source. How will I today, right now, contribute to open source? Now, first and foremost, you have to start by finding a project that interests you. It's important because there are several thousands of open source opportunities. And if you don't stick with the one that brings you joy, the one that you have a passion, a fire for, you easily get swayed along the way and just end the project without fulfilling your commitment to the project. Next, you have to, after you've found your project, you have to start by familiarizing yourself with the code base. Afterwards, you look for issues or bugs or issues that you can fix within the project. Then you know where to start. If you don't know where to start, you reach out to the open source community that is heading and maintaining the project and ask them, how can I be of help or how can I be of service? I was in a meeting today and they talked about having skills that you can give as a form of volunteering. So that can be a way you can contribute to the open source. And when you've found an issue you want to work in, you can create a fork of the project and begin to work on your own branch of the project or work on the task assigned to you on that open source project. Moving on, we're going to look at some legal constraints in open source. Now we've talked about who can contribute to open source, what open source is, definition of open source, and some valuable softwares that we use today that are open source. Now we're looking to look at what are the legal implications of participating, using, modifying, or distributing open source software. Now, although open source is free, generally free to use, to modify, and to distribute, is not free from legal constraints. Now, the software is licensed under specific sets of terms and conditions that have to be followed. If not, legal implication can be raised against you. While creating our slide, for example, we took some images from Google Image, and we were told by our mentor that these images were not free for use because they are found on, not just because they are found on Google means that you can just simply use them as you like, but they also have some rules and laws guiding the use of these softwares, and that's why you have to be in the know of the legal constraints of open source softwares. And some of the licenses that guide the use of open source softwares, we have the GPL, the MIT license, the Apache license, and many more other licenses like this. Moving on, we're going to look at the open source communities. What are some of the open source communities that you can join today and start contributing with whatever level of skill you have, whether low or advanced? Now we're going to look at Rai.as. We have Rai.as, we have Open Library, we have Creative Commons, we have several of these open source communities as you can see on the screen. I will just give us a brief overview of some of them. Now, Rai.as is a minimalistic blogging platform where you can write and publish articles. Then Open Library is a digital library where you can publish books. Then Library Office is like the open source alternative to Microsoft Office. WordPress is the CMS, that's the content management system for creating websites and blogs. And so many of all these open source communities that we can get started in today. Moving on to the next slide, we have some other open source communities that you can start right now as a technical writer. We have the OpenAI Initiative, the Apache Software Foundation, the Linux Documentation Project, Write the Docs, the Mozilla Development Network, the Drupal Documentation Team, and so on. Each of these open source communities are useful for anyone starting out or even experienced technical writers. For example, the OpenAI Initiative is a community-driven organization that is focused on creating, evolving, and promoting the open AI specifications. Now, it may interest you to know that the open AI are the ones that set the standard for the RESTful APIs. Another example is the Linux documentation project. Another example is the GitHub documentation project and the documentation community, which many of the previous presenters have touched on today. Moving on, and in conclusion, we've gone through who can participate in open source, what open source is, some real-life examples of open source softwares, and communities that you can participate in right now. And we now know that anyone, virtually anyone, with diverse skill can participate in open source, from documentation to testing to design to coding. And there are several open source communities available for you to join and contribute to. And these communities offer a wealth of opportunities and offer a wealth of resources, knowledge, and opportunities to collaborate with like-minded individuals, whether you're a beginner or experienced technical writer. These communities can provide you with a platform to sharpen your skills. Now, thank you very much for listening, and I can't wait to see what you're able to do with your skills and expand your network using open source platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Timper. Tim Peridot, are you here?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Your time starts. Your time starts now. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Please, I hope we can all see my screen. I'm Morgan Erubo from Team Peridots. My team chose to talk about understanding technical writing. Why is it important? We've chosen this topic because it's a good way to refresh our minds about some of what we've discussed in the first month of the cohort. So I'll just jump right in. We already across in whatever technical document that they come across. For that the ones that use technical documents are able to use products and services in a very effective and safe manner. Technical writing is also can also help to improve efficiency because there's no need for trial and error. If a person has a challenge using a particular product, service, application, they can easily access a technical document.
I don't know. I think his network. His peridot. I can't hear anything. In peridots, any information can drop it in the chat. If there is none, we are moving on to the next team so we can actually close for today. Team Silver, are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah, good evening. I'm ready for the presentation. So, yeah, I'll be sharing my screen shortly. Um, okay. So, I want to believe you can all see my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yeah, so my name is Rashid. I'm representing Team Silver. So for today's topic, and the topic, we try to conclude on this topic based on the previous class we've had before they said that the group competition is going to come up. So the topic for today will be the relevance of technical writing to open source project. So yeah, so the next slide here, what I have is to discuss about the conceptual clarification of some terms which are very important for us to have a deep understanding of all these terminologies. So what is technical writing? So according to Wikipedia, it says technical writing is a writing or drafting of technical communication. Look at this point now, you're talking about technical communication, in form of writing. So you should know that this technical writing itself has been from a long time before now. It has backdates classical time. So, and not that technology has been hold itself, but there are some other aspects that involves writing that it is not in form of technology. So, but people need those technical analysis, those technical explanation for them to be able to understand what that thing is saying. So look at, we have in finance, there's also technical communication in finance, in medicine, in consumer electronics, in forestry, all these things, technical writing also is involved in all those fields. So technical writing encompasses a large subfield of technical communication. So another conceptual clarification in our slide is the open source. What is open source? Open source refers to something people can modify and share because it is publicly accessible. So imagine Facebook, for example, they are the creator of React.js, which is a popular JavaScript library for creating user interface. Uh, yeah. So when you look at this React.js now, it has achieved a lot of interest from great developers out there to contribute to it. So when something become open source, that means that thing is easily accessible to everyone. So maybe you want to contribute to Facebook, or you want to look at this React.js code base now, you can just Google it on GitHub, you find the code base, you start with reading code. I did that some days ago, seeing how some functions, some use case functions we use in our, as a React developer, how they are being created. So another thing we need to clarify here is open source project. Simply put, open source project are like bringing it to engineering part. Now we say there are software that are the software products that are open source. So there are some libraries like we developers use that we use it daily, and they are made open source software that you can use in our application as a dependency. So maybe you want to use a Axios, you want to communicate with API. So you can use Axios as an open source software to to fetch data from the back end. So that is an open source project. So why technical writing? Yeah, this is very important. So because all of us are here now trying to acquire knowledge of all this and this technical writing and to be able to add values to people's life and also to make money. Yeah, that's the goal. So technical writing is crucial in open source projects. So why is technical writing crucial in open source projects? It is crucial because imagine all this software, maybe a person managing open source project now, the manager of that project. So maybe a developer have interest in contributing to the project. So what the first thing they are going to do to you is to onboard you. And part of the onboarding is that they are going to show you some technical documents for you to read, how to make a pull request, how to make commit, so how to write a commit message. All those things will be detailed in what's called Markdown on GitHub. So you see it, you know, okay, we have more insight. The developer doesn't need, the manager doesn't need to sit you down, have a video call with you. Just share that Markdown document to you to go and read from there. And there are links that links to various other sub information that you need to understand. So open source technical writing is very important to open source projects, and because application is becoming more complex and more robust, and developers need to understand how the code base work, need to read some documentation on how it's going to make a pull request, at least some brief introduction about the application, the open source project. So not only that, for the users as well, there are also manuals. Like when you buy a phone, like maybe iPhone 14 Pro Max, you buy iPhone 14 Pro Max, there will be manual in the box for you to read to know how to operate the phone. You can't just buy something new and start operating it anyhow. You just maybe damage or spoil some settings. So you have to go through the manuals, which is a work of a technical writer. So the person has written important information that the user can understand. So a technical writer need to write what a user can understand based on how the application flow works. So the user do this. When you click on button, press button, the home button. From the home button, you can send message. So all those flows and with arrows, with icons, with pointers, you can see all those things. A user will be able to understand that. So as such, technical documentation is very vital to ensure code is maintainable, scalable, and easily understandable by anyone who might want to contribute. So this is in form of a developer who wants to contribute to open source projects. So highlighting some of the relevance of technical writing to open source, clear documentation. So it helps the overall user experience of the project to make it more accessible to users to verify technical background and skills level. So there's also technical writing also allows developers to communicate complex technical concepts. Maybe they say that use callback or use reducer. All those concepts as a beginner, someone who is just starting his development career, is now saying use callback inside a code base. But you as the project as the project manager, you know that you need to document some things, that some technical concept in which the beginner developer is going to understand for that person to be able to contribute and familiarize his or herself with that concept. Use reducer, use state, all those things. You need to let them know, you need to explain how it works. So technical writing also helps in reducing errors. Like I said, I haven't explained all those technical concepts. That's those complex technical concepts. So it will now help that person who want to contribute to that project to know that, oh, you state, oh, I'm not to use it in certain place. Oh. So all those directions, it will now reduce bug, reduce problems that is going to happen, that might likely happen to the project. So you also have proper documentation. So documentation is very important Imagine imagine you want to do API documentation. One of the example of technical writing, one of the reasons why it is good that you can use it for documentation, documenting your API and documenting the business requirements. So all these things are very important. Like my company, they use Coda Doc to document their business requirements. Coda Doc. So once you go there, the link to Figma, the explanation, the acceptance criteria, all those discussion, the functions. Okay, so all those description, the flow of the application is thoroughly explained in the Coda Doc, which is a form of technical writing as well. So so
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
so
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Finally,
Your time is spent. Thank you, Rashid.
thank you.
Tim Quaz, are you here? Let's go.
Next option is on.
Tim Quaz, are you here? Please, let's go. Are you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Tim Quads, are you here? Let's go. If no one is representing Tim Quads, let's go to the last group for today. Last group, are you here? Team Turquoise, are you here? Oh, okay. It looks like the last two groups are not represented. They're not available. Oh, Team Quartz, is anybody here? Okay. So let me just share. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. It is my cat. Is one crying. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating in today's section, in today's event. For the sake of not elongating the whole meeting, we would not be sharing the results foundation today. But I would just like to point out a few things. Everyone really, really putting their best in coming out and presenting and representing their group today. That is really wonderful. Like we did not even expect this amount of turnout and dedication, and it was really, 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 really nice to see that we are all interested in learning and we are all interested in representing our various groups. That was really good. Some were too fast in their presentation, some were too nervous, some were stellar, some did really well in presenting. But then at the end of the day, every group came out, every group represented their group. That was really, really good. That was really impressive. So before the end of tomorrow, we will be sharing the results of everybody's performance and we'll be announcing the winner by the end of tomorrow. So I have shared a message on Slack. Drop the link to your slide. I will not wisdom, yes, wisdom auto. I will not announce it by 4 a.m. Don't worry. So drop a link to your slide in the Slack thread I created, and then your name also in the upper thread, so we could help us in collating the results and everything. So thank you once again, everyone, for participating in today's event. The one not a tip or just giving you a tip. The one for the next time, the next game will be announcing will be more tougher and more stronger than this criteria. So thank you, everyone. Well done to every team that participated. Say a big thank you to your mentors because they have been defending and representing you in the mentors chat. Thank you guys very much for participating. Have a wonderful night rest.
Thank you too.
Thank you.